Oh, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. And the beat goes on right here on another episode of the Feel Good Show. And, you know, we've been waiting for this moment for a while now. And now that it's actually here, I'm pinching myself. Is this real? Is this really real? But my goodness, I think it is. Ladies and gentlemen, back in the WAPJ studios, back on the airwaves. Ladies and gentlemen, he is no joke. He's bringing it, and he's bringing it bad. It's the one, it's the only T-Boz with words of wisdom and moments of meditation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Williams. Be careful where you pinch yourself, okay? You might find a hemorrhoid or something. I don't know. But, I just out of makeup. I said to the girl in makeup, why is Jock in and out so fast? She says, well, he's a cool summer. I mean, it's just a little bit of powder. They do your hair. You're done. They have me in the chair from 6 o'clock this morning. I said to the makeup girl, what season am I? She says, Boz, there's no season that describes you. Okay, so anyway, good morning, everyone. Dave, could you just have those people come in? Because we have a very big show today. And I want to get rolling. Just all the new people and tell the people in the hall, come on in. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Words of Wisdom and Moments of Meditation. Great to be back. Our Father's Day special. I've had a lot of contributors. A lot of you came in with great stuff, some very revealing things. This is going to be a very interesting show. I want to get to everyone. There are no shout-outs. The format is simple. Father's Day salute with lessons and reflections. And you guys did an awesome job. Awesome job. And it's so good to be here. I'm going to get right over to Stan, the coffee man. But I want to say that I'm going to be 66 September. And so my kids got me a Father's Day present. It's a flip phone with only 3 numbers in it, 911. So there you go. I guess I'm getting older, and they love me. So let's go over to Stan, the coffee man, because we have yes, ma'am, come on in. We have a big show today, and we want to get rolling. Stan, what do we got in the coffee pot today? Wow, Irish creme. And what do we have here on the table? Crumb buns. Oh, real dad kind of stuff. Danish, cheese Danish, pineapple. Buttered rolls. Now, what could be more dad than a buttered roll, right? Oh, awesome, Stan. And there is the tomato juice and the, pineapple juice. Nice. And then look at all the fruit over there. Boy, you really went all out today. All of this is brought to us by Crumbs down at Franklin Square. So if you guys are looking for great Danish like this and food, please visit them. They're taking care of the tree table today. Oh, Stan wants to say something. Okay, Stan. He mentioned that our world has a lot of challenges, right, Dave, before we get into Father's Day, in our own country and abroad. So he asked everyone to pray for what's going on in the world. And thank you, Stan, for bringing that to us. So let's get to the TV dads. We did the TV moms. The interesting thing about the TV dads is we had ties. There were ties for certain things. So let's start, and we'll get going with this. We'll start with number 10, Ben Cartwright, right? Warren Green played that, Bonanza. Number 9, Danny Williams. Those of you who old enough to know, Make Room for Daddy with the late, great Danny Thomas, who was very instrumental in the Children's Hospital. We go down to number 8, Stephen Douglas. Who's that? My 3 Sons, Fred McMurray. Remember? Da-da-da-da-da. You can see the shoes, right? My father loved that show because he had 3 sons. Number 7, George Jefferson, played greatly by Sherman Helmsley in the show aptly named The Jeffersons. Number 6 is Herman Munster. Could you just hear him? Hey, Lily. Obviously on the Munsters, Fred Gwynn. Those of you who grew up in the 50s, he was on another show, Car 54, Where Are You? Those of you who can remember that, he started there. Number 5, Charles Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie, played by the late, very handsome Michael Landon. Great job there. Jim Anderson from the hit show Father Knows Best, and who played that? But none other than Robert Young, who went on to Marcus Welby, played that, did a great job there. We move over to number 3, for Jim Anderson. Number 3, Cliff Huxtable, played by the very funny Bill Cosby on The Cosby Show. Malcolm Jamal Warner became a star out of that, and a bunch of other people. Great job there. We had a tie for second. Andy Taylor from the great Andy Griffith Show with Old Opie, and played by the late Andy Griffith. Tied with him is Tim Tooltime Taylor from Home Improvement by the funny, very funny Tim Allen. And here's the three-way tie for first place, boys and girls. Three-way tie, and they're all together. You can put these three in any order you want. Mike Brady, played by the late Robert Reed, of course, the Brady Bunch, a very different show. Families coming together, two husband and wives from different relationships. So that was very cool. And even the Andy Griffith Show, a single dad back in the 60s. That was kind of revolutionary for its day. Also tied with Mike Brady is Alex Stone from the Donna Reed Show, played by the very handsome and debonair Carl Betts. He was the doctor on this, doctor husband on the show. And then tied with these two guys, and you can put them where you want, of course, Ward Cleaver, played by the dashing Hugh Beaumont of Leave It to Beaver. And then we have honorable mention, Homer Simpson, and then Howard Cunningham, played by Tom Bosley, not Tom Bozzi, from Happy Days. Could you just hear Potsy when he comes in? Hey, Mr. C. Right? And then Stephen Keaton from Family Ties, played by the great Michael Gross, along with Michael J. Fox. What a great show that was. So you can mix these up any way you want. You can do what you want, but that's the list I found, and hope that brought a lot of great memories. Let's get right rolling with this Father's Day salute. We start with Pam Brown, and she says, dads are most ordinary men turned by love into heroes. And they are great and adventurous storytellers and singers of songs. You're going to hear that from some of our classmates today about singers of song. So turned by love. I'm going to keep coming back to this again and again through the show as different people echo this. We go down to Proverbs 22, verse 6, and it says, start a child off on the way they should go. Boom. Wow. And a lot of you talk about your fathers and how they set you on the path to what you're doing now. Lady Boz reveals that in her life, and Susan. So that Proverbs is very true. We move down to Proverbs 17, verse 6. Parents are the pride of their children. Bing, bang, boom. And you will find today, with the love that emanates from these words that all of you sent in, that your parents are I think that's so cool. Parents are the pride of their children. And you're gonna see that without me even saying it. Here's a great unknown quote, and it says, dads are a son's first hero and a daughter's first love. Isn't that so true? A son's first hero, your daughter's first love. And then 2 Thessalonians 11-12 says, fathers encourage and comfort their children. And you'll hear that. My friend Jim talked about something his dad did when he played Little League and talked about encouragement. And my friend Barbara, and all of you are my friends, Keith and Catherine. And so all of you here in the classroom are echoing all this. So I'm going to bounce back to those. And there's still people coming in. Come on. Go ahead. Big show. We want to get rolling here. All right. Let's start with our first classmate, Lynn. And she says her father, the late Anthony Pontonio, said, listen, that's why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. All right. And so that's great advice in our relationships with our coworkers. Sometimes we're too quick to jump in. I'm guilty of that. I always say I'm not one of those motivational or inspirational people that think I'm up on a cloud. I'm guilty of that. And listening to your spouse, to your kids, okay, to coworkers before you jump in on them. So good tidbit there from her dad. Catherine, what Catherine did is she sewed a little thread from her dad, her husband Bill, and her son Andrew. So she has a trilogy here of dads, and she found something the same with all three of them, and we'll go with it. One, it starts with principled. They were principled men, unselfish, kind, fair, and loving men. And Catherine says at the end of this piece, these are the three most important men in her life, and she loves them, along with her son Benjamin. So, and she wants to wish him a happy Father's Day. So principled, unselfish, kind, fair, and loving. Loving is important. You could be a disciplinarian, but if you're disciplined without love, the children can feel that. So love is important. By example, each father has offered a generous dose of guidance and affection. So there's that word affection again. So the guidance is supported by the affection. The children know that what Bill was doing, what her father did, and what Andrew did with his children, which is Catherine and Bill's grandchildren, that there's affection there. They're not just pulling things, out of their head. Most importantly, a genuine interest in the well-being of their children and their families. So the children know the dad's interested in them. He's not just punching a clock as a dad. He's truly interested in them, and children can feel that. If you're very interested in what they're doing in school or what they're doing in life and all of that kind of stuff. She also says that the men also had a historical sense of confidence in the face of adversity, okay? Their strong work ethic. And that's important, okay? Getting through adversity. The children could see that Bill, and like all of your dads and Catherine's dad and Andrew, that through adversity, they didn't fold like a cheap camera. They held the family together. They stayed true to their principles. And that's very, very important. And dependable believers in a positive future. Wow, what a great thing to give kids. What a great thing. And when I met Catherine and Bill, Andrew that we're talking about, and her son Benjamin, were little kids, okay? And I've known them for a long time. But the point is, what a great thing. I love what she puts there, a positive future. So both Andrew with her grandchildren and Bill did with Benjamin and Andrew, and what Catherine's father did with her and her sister and the brother is a positive future. Isn't that wonderful, instead of all the negative? So very good, Catherine. Great job on that. Country Living magazine says this: life does not come with a manual. It comes with a father. Dads hold our hands for a little while. I almost cried when I wrote this. Hands for a little while and our hearts forever. Isn't that true? Right? Your dad, as you started to walk or ride a bike, okay? They hold your hands for a little while, but our hearts forever. My sister Dina down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yes, Jock, we got people from the South listening to us, y'all. And so she says about my father, there were 3 sayings that resonate to her, and he taught her, the less said, the better. Boom, right? If you're having a fight with your spouse or maybe someone at work, sometimes the less said, the better, okay? And be a little bit reserved. Someone later on is going to tell you how they're reserved and don't talk that much. He also said, always ask questions. Okay, always ask questions. Don't give answers. So if you're trying to learn something, and you've heard people, they ask you a question, just like what Lynn's father said, and then they're jumping in with the answer. So her father, which is my father, said, ask questions and then wait for the answer. And then the big 3, we heard this a million times, and Lady Boz has heard it too. We'd be doing projects in the yard with my father or going to the beach or whatever we were doing. And here's his big 3. There's the right way, there's the wrong way, and there's the Bozzy way. And some of you are laughing. You've heard me say that before. My father thought his way was above right and wrong. And we'd be doing something, and he'd say, that's the wrong way, the right way, do it the Bozzy way. And to some extent, the 4 of us, my siblings, we do things a little bit differently than most. But we're from New York. We move over, let's see, yes, we're going to start with Keith and then go to the break and end with Keith. We go over to my friend Keith. He says, I consider my father the king and the monarch of our family. He's 88 years old. He has 5 children, 10 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. And even at this age in his life, he is happy coloring Easter eggs, stuffing Christmas stockings right alongside the children, and he still loves camping and fishing to this day. Now, before I go to the next Keith thing, why don't we go, Jock, into the break? I know it's almost 11:30, and then we can keep rolling along. It's 11:29. Why don't we do it now, okay?
And thank you so much, T-Boz. We want to take this opportunity to thank the sponsor of the Feel Good Show, 5 Points Center for the Visual Arts and 5 Points Art Center, with 2 convenient locations for you. 1 in the center of downtown Torrington at the 5 Points Traffic Circle, and 2 at 855 University Drive on the former Torrington Yukon campus branch, exhibiting international, national, and regional artists. We want to thank them for their support of Torrington Community Radio, WAPJ, and the Feel Good Show, and also for allowing us to bring you quality community programming that we are witnessing at this very time. So with that being said, thank you so much, T-Boz, and we will turn the show back to you.
Okay, thank you. Keith also goes on to say that the most important thing about his father, that he is highly regarded as the most important person that is always bringing the family together, wants the family together for holidays, wants the family together for birthdays and other events, backyard barbecues or something. And that's so cool, I think, that even at 88, and even though the kids could take up the slack, which they probably do, the father is showing the importance, right? We just said about Thessalonians, about comfort and encouragement. He's showing the importance that even at 88, the love and the admiration he has for his children and great-grandchildren and grandchildren, that he wants them together. A lot of us have professional lives, and we're scattered throughout the United States. My family especially, scattered through Connecticut, scattered around. But Mr. Hodder wants the family together, and I think that is so cool that he has that interest, that love burning inside of him. Keith also looks downstream, like Catherine did, and he talks about his son Derek, who's a young dad, and he says he is grateful for the kind of and to rewarding, and he's grateful to the kind of father that Derek has become. He's always making time, just like his grandfather, for Cameron and Madison. So, good parenting, good fathering skills, like Catherine said, and now Keith said, it trickles down, right? And so here Derek is, and I remember Derek when Derek was up to my knee. I've known Keith that long too. But he's copied Keith and his grandfather in making the children important. We go to Brother Boz, known as Stephen, and he has 2 favorite sayings that his father, again, my father, said. And the first one is, don't wait for anything. Yes, my father taught us, don't wait. We're not procrastinators. You want to do something. You want to build a business. You want to join the track team. Get in there, sign your name, get going, okay? My father also said, or Stephen says, his other famous saying was, don't ask. And boy, was that so true when I lost my wife 8 years ago. My friends Jim, Barbara, Bill Loader down in Florida, Tommy Tromba, the list goes on and on. Lady Boz, Fred, all these people who supported me, not financially, but with their hearts and their arms and their hands. And they did what my father said, don't ask. In other words, what my father was saying is, if I'm digging a hole in the backyard and it's 100 degrees, don't say, Pa, you want water? Because what you're really saying is, I don't want to go back there. Bring me the water. I'll drink it. And so my friends who I have today that I cherish, they didn't ask. They didn't hold up a balance sheet. They saw a void and they filled it. And I hope that I pray to God that I don't ask when it comes to their needs, that I fill their cup the way they have filled mine. Stephen also talks about he got a good report card, the one time in his life, he said. But he had a great report card, and he came home from school, and he looked up the driveway where he grew up in Long Island. There was a nice red Stingray, and my father had the wheel turned slightly, and it had a sissy bar. Remember that? And the pearl seat and the fenders. And the Stingray was a cool bike for a kid to have in the 60s. My father was the ultimate showman, and Stephen brings that up. He just didn't put the bike in the garage. He had it, all set up. So when my brother came around the corner, boom, The other thing, too, we'll wrap up, Steve, with this. We became very big decorators at Christmas time, our house in Bridgeport, and my brother's still there. We had one year over 350 people come through. We had very elaborate decorations, very motionettes, figures, train sets, music, lights. It was incredible. And we're in the newspaper and all of that, the outside. And my father said to my brother one time, where do you get all of these ideas? And my brother said, from you. And my father looked perplexed, but my father used to take us to the tree in Rockefeller Center and FAO Schwartz and Lord and Taylor. And then we used to go to Roosevelt Field Mall, and he would take us there back in the day when it was open. and it wasn't a closed mall, and there were these giant figures and trees and sleds and moving snowmen and all of that. It's New York, right? Everything is cranked up. And so my brother and I absorbed that like a sponge. And so when we started our decorating, we drew on those experiences. So my father was very good at showing us things, showing us the big world. He was from Brooklyn. He was a New Yorker, obviously. So everything was big and bright and done to the max. And so we got that from him. So we thank him for that. Jerry Seinfeld says, you can tell what was the best years of your father's life because they seem to freeze that clothing style and they write it out. And that's so true. I hope I'm not wearing pleather anymore, but very funny thing by Jerry Seinfeld. They freeze that clothing style. Lucille, she says about this, of her father up there in Canada where she hails from. My father was a hard-working man. Boom. Okay, and Lucille was a very hard worker. A hard-working man. He had a heart of gold, but here's the line I love. He loved us. Wow. Boom. A lot of kids today are suffering because they don't know love. We look at 1 John, and it says, it's not so that we loved God, but that God loved us first. Our fathers loved us first. We said that about moms a month ago. They loved us when we were in the womb. And Lucille says, even though he worked hard, the more important thing she closes with, he loved us. That is probably the most important thing that he did. And that gave her the self-confidence, the strength to marry her late husband, George, move to the United States, learn the English language, raise 3 kids. She got through widowship, too, like the rest of us, and has a great relationship with my friend Fred and continually helps me and encourages me in the things I do. That all comes from that love that she felt from her father. So good tip there. We go over to my friend Corinne, who is my square dance partner and driver on Monday nights. A lot of you who are fellow drivers know her. She says this about her father. My father was very humble. He worked hard and loved his home and his family. He was reserved, like what Lynn's father was saying, He was reserved with his words. That's a good practice. And although I felt his love, she says, the first time he told me he loved me. That's important. I hope all of you in the audience have heard your parents. I did. My father say, I love you, Tally. The first time he told me he loved me was when he dropped me off to college, and he cried that day in front of her. Wow. It's so good that she was able to see that real emotion. Sometimes as fathers, we're trying to be fathers. Sometimes we just have to be people and show the tears. She goes on to say that he was proud of his children. There was 3 of them, her sister, and her brother. He saved his money for his dreams for us. Isn't that beautiful? He barely spent a penny on himself. He served his country, and he loved his country. So what a great, great man he sounds like. And obviously that's transcended to his daughter. And I feel that great upbringing, as she is very helpful to me in my life today. We go over to Fred. Fred always has some good things. Fred says, my father worked hard. He did. He had 8 children. Fred was one of 8. And never lost sight of caring for his family. Fred believes that dedication that his father had for raising those 8 children, along with his mother in Meriden, felt that is what's given him the determination to drive that he had in his professional life. He had a very successful career in computers and IT, and that drive, that goal setting, that getting more education, being the best that he could be, serving other people, he feels that it came down, trickled down, as we said about Catherine and Keith, trickled down from seeing his father never wavering, raising those 8 children and doing the best that he can. So great job there. We go over to Susan. Susan says, and there's something revealing at the end that she said it's okay if I do this. So Susan says she greatly appreciates having the father that she had. They had a very loving father and daughter relationship. That's very important, right? We just said a dad is a girl's first love. He was a selfless man, a father, always gave without thought of himself, kind of what Corinne had said. He was a gifted singer. Okay, he had a beautiful voice, and Susan and he would often sing together. Her love of music she attributes to her father, and she does have a CD out, and she does do a very good job with singing. And he had a beautiful voice. And imagine that they would sing together. Now, that might have been a passing thing when she was a kid, but see how she relishes that today. So the things that we've done with our father, not only the gift that we got of singing, but he shared that gift with her. They did it together. The word together means to get there where you're going, okay? So she talked about that. She says her father would be amazed today at that little hockey puck that's in the house, and you say, play this song. But he would be more amazed that when he would tell it to play a song, what would come out? Music by Susan Leo. She uses her maiden name, which in honor of her father, as her stage name, and wonderful thing there. But what Susan revealed to me, she said it's okay if I share it on the air because she wanted to show the kindness and the love and the sweetness that her father exuded to her and to everyone. When her parents got divorced when she was 15, they had a choice, her and her two brothers. They chose to move in with her father. Now, her father was an executive for Colgate-Palmolive. They had a beautiful house in New Jersey, but they had to go into a small apartment. But that love that they felt from him, and I know some of you are probably shaking your head saying, why did Susan share this? Well, she's from New Jersey, and why did she want it on the air? Because it's good in life, my friends, to see your parents and to see your loved ones and to see your children as who and what they truly are. Sometimes we airbrush that in, and when we airbrush those things in, we bury things, and that manifests itself in other problems. So I applaud Susan for being open with, and maybe there's people in the audience who need to hear this, but she wanted to demonstrate, illustrate the love that she had for her father. She chose and her brothers to go with him. So thank you, Susan, for an open heart and open mind. Lady Boz, she says, my father taught me financial responsibility. She said, I remember from when I was about 10 years old over there in merry old England, and that he told her to take money out of whatever money she made and put money aside and save it. There's something we don't really teach that well. So that when she wanted to buy some things, she would have the money. At that age, she didn't know what a credit score was. But she says in life that advice has served her very well. She is in very good shape financially. She has a beautiful home that she remodeled, and she didn't have to beg the government for money. I'll leave it at that. We look at Proverbs, and it echoes what William Hilson taught his then Veronica Hilson in England. It says in Proverbs 13:11, he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. Bing, bang, boom. So what Mr. Hilson was teaching his daughter, which let me tell you something, boys and girls, it is transcended to T-Boz. And my parents tried to teach me those things, but I went a different way. But through her love and support and encouragement, I've learned to be better with that. So, I mean, we jump back. Fathers are turned by love. We talk about comfort and encouraging. So far, we've seen fathers that have encouraged. We've seen fathers that cried. We've seen fathers that put a bicycle in the driveway in a fancy way. We see fathers looking at their sons, okay, as being good fathers. So those things that we read off in the beginning from Thessalonians and from Pam Brown and from Proverbs are echoing in all of these stories. We move over to my friend Jeannie. Now, this is important, and I wanted to get to this in the beginning, but I want to make time for the last story. So she says, not everyone is blessed with a good earthly father, but we all have a heavenly Father who loves us. It's not so much that we love God, but that God loved us first. It's true. None of those TV dads, maybe, but it's true. Not everyone grows up with a father. Some kids, the father's deceased, divorced, sometimes teenage pregnancies, the father's not around, okay? There is no perfect world. Thankfully for the people in this room, they were blessed. But we do recognize that not everyone has the life that these people have. And so Jeannie draws our attention to our Heavenly Father. You always have God at your side. And that was a good point that she brought up. Excuse me. Jim says he has many fond memories of his father. His nickname was Cuddy. His real name was Angelo Boscarino. Mr. Boscarino, I call him. I had the privilege of meeting him once. And he said one of his favorite memories when he was playing Little League Baseball here in Torrington. And around the third inning, his father would show up and he would sit at the right field foul line, same spot every week, to watch Jim play baseball. Now, some of you may say, what's the big deal? Here's the big deal. Mr. Boscarino worked in construction. This was summertime. He was a foreman for a cement company. So maybe Jim doesn't know. I don't know. But maybe Cuddy had to get up a little earlier that day, right? Maybe he had to work through lunch. Maybe he had to maybe give up a little vacation time or something so he could be there for his son. Thessalonians, the father encourages and comfort. What comfort for Jim when he stepped up to the plate to look at the same spot. And by sitting in the same spot, that shows commitment, okay? Commitment to his son. So when he sat up there and he had that bat in his hand, he looked over and there was Dad. Every day, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Jim says. So for a man in construction, summertime, he probably had to make some sacrifices like all these other dads did to be there for his son. But his son today is a spitting image of his father, not only in his face, but in his spirit, in his heart, and in his mind. Jim Boscarino is committed, and he learned that from his father, who almost lived to be 99. So something like attending a kid's baseball game, show up. If you got kids, right, or you have grandchildren, push the job aside. The company's not going to go out of business. You want two children, show up. Let's talk about Charlie. Charlie has a great story. Oh, I want to do Steve Martin. Here's a funny thing here. A father carries pictures where he once carried money. Isn't that true? I have a wallet, and there are pictures in it, but the money has long been gone. Okay, so we want to get into Charlie. Charlie has a great story, the cap gun story, and he and his father were playing hide and seek, and Charlie said, Dad, I want to play hide and seek, because his mother worked at an insurance company in Hartford, and she worked 3 to 11. So he said, Dad, I want to play hide and seek. So Father said, yeah, great. He says, but let's add a twist to this. He said, let's turn the lights off and get our cap guns, and as we're playing hide and seek and hiding on each other, we'll be shooting the guns. Well, that defeated the purpose. Like Charlie said, every time they banged into something, they thought it was the other person. They shot the gun so you knew where the other person was, right in the middle of a cap gun. So this is going on for hours. Charlie and his father dodging around the living room and dining room, pop, 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 pop with the gun, and you could see the other guy, right? A lot of fun. So then that ended. They turned on the lights. Guess what? The house is full of cap gun smoke, okay? There's all smoke in the house. And Charlie and his father are laughing and laughing and laughing. And the best part of that story, Charlie says at the end, that he got to see his father be a kid like me, he says. Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful thing that Charlie saw his dad as he might have been when his father was 10 years old. Silly, laughing, running around, playing with cap guns in the dark, trying to play hide and seek. Isn't that a wonderful memory that Charlie was able to see his father as a child like him, almost as the same instead of the father figure? I think that's a wonderful, wonderful story. I want to get into, I know where are we? Okay, we're going to have to squeeze it in. I want to get into my friend Tommy. And this is really something. Tommy says his father taught him organization and work ethics. Now, follow along with this. Tommy's father had a 47 Chevy, and Tommy had a paper route, right? They lived on over here in Torrington, I believe on the west side. And you got, Highland Avenue there, which goes up like a mountain. Okay, and so Tommy has polio. But his father teaches him with the 47 Chevy to put all the papers in the car. But as Tommy told me, but his father didn't drive him house to house. No, his father had made the car, told Tommy to set it up as a staging area and put all the papers in there in the order that they're delivered. And then get your bag, put the papers in that order, and go deliver. Imagine that. His father didn't baby him because he had polio. He made him stronger. He made him better. He made him overcome his disability. I tell you, back in the 80s and early 90s, I think we went from empowering children to enabling them. And I think Mr. Tromba had the right idea when he said to his son, here's the car, put them in order, here's the bag, walk. And that's why Tommy and his wife, Carmi, who are going to celebrate 60 years of marriage next Thursday, raised 4 dynamite children. And he's been a big help to me. Let's go over to the second story about Tommy. And he also said that his father built and designed his exerciser peddler for him. Imagine that. And he was constantly fixing the one-hand crutch because Tommy was living like a regular kid. Jim Marinelli tells me he used to see Tommy going up Highland Avenue running after the other kids. He wasn't going to let that leg stop him from being a regular guy. You know why? Because his father made him realize that he can be just like the other kids. But then years later, Tommy had a motor vehicle incident, and they were in front of the judge, he and his dad. And the judge gave Tommy a pass. It was easy on him, and it was a very serious violation, Tommy tells me. And then his father says to the judge, "Are you done?" The judge says, "Yes." He turns to Tommy and he says, "Give me your license." Takes his license, and Tommy says there was no discussion, there were no words, there was no admonishment, nothing. Just 30 days of silence and no license. You know what Mr. Tromba taught his son? That even over the courts, he was the father of that son. And unfortunately today, we've taken that away from parents. Mr. Tromba was the boss, and that's why Tommy respected his father. Tommy also said his father was loving and very kind. And later in life, he was also known as the Torrington watchdog. Some of you in Torrington remember that. He wrote for this an article, I believe. But also later in life, Tommy's father helped people who were visually impaired. And look what his son is doing today, helping me. And that goes right back to Philippians, all right, chapter 2, verse 1. Look not only on your own interests, but the interests of others. So this man, Mr. Tromba, built his son to be what he is today, overlooked his disability, and also taught him that he was the boss, so that Tommy would respect him. And like I said, and I, too, almost fell into that 80s and 90s kind of life. In the house that I own today, my late wife and I were a little short for the mortgage. And my parents had built a fantastic business after coming out of another business where they were bankrupt. We're so broke, my mother had to steal our Christmas present. And so Lori and I were behind on the mortgage. We're short. And so I asked I acted like a weakling, and I asked for $500 we needed, and so she gave it to us. Then about 8 months went along, and I needed another $500, and I asked her again, and they gave it to us. And that May, my mother and father came up here to have lunch with me, and my mother went in the house to make lunch, and my father said to me, "You can't ask me for money anymore. If you can't afford this house, then sell it." Boom. He said, "I've worked my way. You've got to learn to do it, too." You know what he did to T-Boz? He taught T-Boz, like Tom Tromba, to zipper my pants in the front and be a man in the head of my household. Fatherhood is about all the beautiful things that were read today, and we're going to finish up, my friend Barbara. But fatherhood is also about teaching a child in the way that they should go. And unfortunately, today, that's not the case. And fathers and the accountability, what we were taught from, Tommy and I were taught with these two stories, the accountability and the commitment to owning a home, having a paper route, and a motor vehicle violation should come from the parents, the people who bore you. And that's a hard message for some people. But, there's a saying, those who live under the nest never learn to fly. You gotta sometimes, what Mr. Tromba said, what Mr. Bozzi said, you have to tell your kids no, but you do it with love. Let's get over to Barbara, and then we'll get to the takeaway. Okay, Barbara says this: "I can speak volumes of my wonderful father, who shared his love of music. There's another music love, books with me. He built a beautiful house that I'm in today, and she admired his 13-year battle with cancer, which eventually took his life at age 66. So she admired her father. But the second part of Barbara's thoughts about her dad is going to be our first takeaway, and I love this. I think it's beautiful. She says, "His greatest gift was that he believed in me, he encouraged me," right out of Scripture, "and he had an inspirational presence." Boom. I love that word, presence. God has a presence with her. Barbara saying that her father has an inspirational presence. He believed in her, just like everyone else is saying, just like what Susan is saying. But the way she phrased it, inspirational presence, not a material presence, not a money presence, not a give me this, that, and the other thing, but an inspirational presence, like a being, like a force. I think that's beautiful. I think all of you should hold on to that and realize that your dads, too, have been an inspirational presence. We look at Malachi chapter 4, verse 6, and it says, He, meaning God, He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children. Boom. And that's what we heard today. We heard how He, God, has turned the hearts of the parents to their children. And that's why all of you have these memories. And I'm glad that Tommy and Susan shared some realism there, because there's two sides of it, isn't it, in boys and girls, to parenting, right? There is no manual, okay? But remember, to a son, dad is the first hero. To a daughter, first love. And I enjoyed doing the show today, and I just want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for pouring out your hearts to me to share on this show of some truly wonderful men that impacted the people that I know. And their legacy lives on through all of you. Jock, say something about your dad and the song. Sorry I went a little long, but it was a lot here. Jock?
Well, Father's Day is what it is. And when, your parents have passed, you take along those memories and those appreciations of what they instilled in you, and the values that that hopefully are continue to be relevant throughout your day, throughout your life. I definitely identify with your statement that you made earlier in terms of the biblical principle of teaching a child in the way it should go, and from that way he should not depart. So I think that that's always a good thing to live by. My parents didn't force me to take on any type of religious dogma, but they certainly encouraged me to keep the faith. So I think that pathway has served me well throughout my life. So I think.
And I will say, go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say I'm very grateful for that aspect of my life that my father played in that role.
And I will say, Jock, that your father lives every day through you, what you do for the community, what you've done for me with this show. And I said about Jim, just because they pass away, they live in you. And you are the best example of your father and what you do for the town of Torrington, the community at large, and Culture for a Cause, and all the things you're involved in. Your father is constantly alive, and you're the best example of him every day.
Well, I'm sure that he would appreciate those words, as do I, T-Boz. And we thank you for your contributions to the station. We do have to kind of push it forward here as we approach the top of the hour, but we'll look forward to hearing your message next week, bro.
Yep, we'll do. Sorry we can't get to the song, everyone, but I thought these
We'll get to the song.
What?
We'll get to the song.
Okay, then we are. All right, everyone, Friday Eve, hug your dads, go visit your dads, pray to your dads. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.